Alright, got another game for you here. It's against some guy named Otofu, who is playing this guy, the Mimeoplasm. Here's my hand down here. In my experience, the Mimeoplasm is played generally by pretty solid players. It sort of has a subtle ability, and obviously it goes in Reanimator, which is one of the best archetypes, I think, period, in Commander or 100-card Singleton, just because there's so many ways to cheat big guys into the graveyard and so many good ways to bring them back available in the entire spectrum of the format. I actually played this game a couple of days ago, so my recall of it is not going to be as topical as it normally is. I need to make a point about recording these games right after I play them because I can recall some specific details about how I was thinking about specific things, and can give you some better insight into my decisions. Anyway, I'm playing Nin, my favorite commander. What generally happens is I play my other commander decks for a little while. I might play Mono Black, which I actually have a few replays to record. I don't think I've actually uploaded any Mono Black games yet. And I have all these games that are a struggle, and eventually I get sick of having to struggle in games and wage big comebacks and switch back to Nin because it just tends to crush people. This game, though, a very pitched battle, as you'll see. He goes, oh wait, I go first. My hand is solid minus red mana, but it's got Impulse and Factor Fiction, so nothing to complain about at all. Also, I lack sort of early defense, but I find against these Mimeoplasm decks it takes them usually a little while to get going, so not too terrified. But he's got Soul Ring, the consistent theme of games that I tend to upload for obvious reasons. So it's going to make the game a lot harder. He casts Sylvan Ranger, and I was actually considering a turn 1 Strip Mine here, and when he plays Sylvan Ranger without doing anything, I kind of kicked myself thinking, wow, maybe I should have Strip Mined him, given that he could have easily kept a 1-land draw with the Soul Ring and with the Sylvan Ranger. So I definitely did consider the Strip Mine plan, but ultimately went against it just because I wanted to get into, I wanted to Impulse into red mana to get a counterspell. Or maybe even Vandal Blast. You know, it's kind of funny actually how I've joked with a couple friends of mine that in all of the games of Commander that I have played with Nin, which have to number 300 to 400 at least, probably even more, I have yet to have a Vandal Blast on my turn 1 effectively, or possibly my turn 2, for an opponent's turn 1 Soul Ring. It has never ever happened. But one day it will. So he fetches an island and plays it, which makes me feel even more that he doesn't have any other land in play, and feel even worse about the lack of Strip Mine, but oh well, gotta live with it. So I reveal off Impulse, Monolith, Lapse, Workshop, Bauble, all decent cards, but to me, I think Memory Lapse is key right here, because I need some form of defense for what might be coming next, given that he's going to hit 5 mana next turn. I want to at least, like if he's got an Acidic Slime or something, I want to be able to stop that. I get Metamorph. Great draw right now. Getting the Soul Ring. So just like that, I'm ahead again. He's got a Forest. I don't know if he just drew that. And he casts Birthing Pod. Ugh. Definitely one of the best cards in the format in green. Although I guess you can play this in any color. But I think very underutilized card. I've played it a bunch in 100-card Singleton, and it tends to just completely dominate the game if it's not dealt with right away. And here, of course, it's a huge problem, given that it pumps creatures into his graveyard and gets the best stuff out of his deck. So he immediately sacks his guy, and he gets Azusa, and plays 2 more lands. So, actually, I feel much better about the Strip Mine plan, given that he had a handful of lands, and I would have just set myself back against the Soul Ring needlessly. So it actually worked out well. So I decided to into the Royal his Birthing Pod. And granted, it's going to slow him down just a little bit, but at the same time, because I have Memory Lapse, I can at least hold it off for a couple turns. Because if this ramps up quickly, at 4 mana, he probably gets something like Oracle of Moldea, or he gets Soldevi Simulacrum, or I'm sorry, Solemn Simulacrum. And then he gets Muldrifter, and then he gets Consecrated Sphinx. My phone ringing, and I'm not going to answer it. Anyway, we'll continue. So I play my own Soul Ring, planning to just lapse here. Cast Cultivate, which of course I don't care about. And then Birthing Pod again, which we have a lapse for. So my plan right now is basically, I don't think he can really do a whole lot if I just, I mean, granted, he does have a ton of mana in play. He's already hit the critical mass for this kind of a deck that has Terastrodon, Vorinclex, and other nasty giant reanimator guys. But at the same time, they tap him out. So my plan is to just Factor Fiction into a counterspell to stop the breeding pool, and then try to take over from there. I also need red mana, which I do draw right now, which is great. So I do consider casting Nin, and then Factor Fiction in response, because if you look at my mana, I've got enough to Factor Fiction with you, and I guess 3 untapped. The problem with this is that if I cast Nin, Factor Fiction would tap these 3, which would leave me an island and a Soul Ring. So if I draw one of most of my counters, so if I draw any of the UU counters or Cryptic Command or something, I can't stop the Birthing Pod. So as much as I'd like to play Nin right now, I can't do it. This phone is going to be ringing periodically, unfortunately, while we're going here. So I'm just going to have to Factor Fiction instead. And there's the pod again. And I Factor Fiction and reveal Copy Artifact, Merchant Scroll, Thirst, Mana Vault, Island. In retrospect, maybe I should have just done mainstep Factor Fiction. Given that I could have... Well, I mean, I guess I could have drawn a lot of stuff. I could have drawn in Amnesia and some sort of mana artifact. Like in this situation, let's say hypothetically that, I don't know, Copy Artifact was Amnesia. I would have been able to play the Mana Vault and Amnesia, the Birthing Pod, out of his hand right away. So I think in retrospect, there's probably a mistake to Factor Fiction there. There's often, it's one of those situations where if you definitely know you're going to be playing a spell on their turn, to kill a creature or whatever, sometimes it does make a lot of sense to cast it main step too. I also, had I drawn this, I would have gotten my Merchant Scroll, and I would have been able to Merchant Scroll for Mana Drain and have a much better outcome here. So definitely a mistake. He does this split, and I'm just going to go for the Thirst, because I'm still hoping vainly to draw a 2 mana counter. And I get Expedition Map and Crucible. Normally you're happy to see Crucible with Strip Mine, but not here. I just throw away the map, since I already have Strip Mine. So he pods up the Simulacrum. Alright, so after some consideration here, I realize I'm just going to have to, as much as it pains me to do this, I have to Cyclonic Rift away Solemn Simulacrum, because I've got no game at all right now, and I just have to slow him down and try to win with Nin. There's everyone's favorite guy. And I overloaded Cyclonic Rift, sets him back a little bit. And I decided to start strip mining a little bit too, now that I've got Crucible going. I could have played the Mana Vault, but I can just do that next turn. And I might as well try to shut down his blue as quickly as I can. Oh, the other thing I also calculated behind the strip mine play was that he didn't have enough mana to go Soul Ring, if he didn't draw land, to go Soul Ring, Simulacrum, play Birthing Pod, and use it. It left him 1 mana short. That was sort of the key reason for strip mining there. It bought me 1 more turn before he would go get a Muldrifter or Acidic Slime or something. So he's got Sylvan Primordial. So now Birthing Pod is game over probably. I cannot let it resolve, and he kills my source of red. Fortunately, I've got that. So we sack it and play a Vault. And this is one of those situations also where I decide that I'm just going to let him do whatever he needs to with Birthing Pod. I just want to tap out because he does have 5 cards in his hand, and if he were to kill Nin in this situation, I would almost certainly lose the game, given that I have no counters at all. Because I know I'm going to use Nin regardless of what he does, because I have nothing to stop Birthing Pod. So I might as well do it when he's tapped out versus when he, in response to him casting something. Because imagine he casts Birthing Pod, and I go, okay, well, now I need to use Nin. I use Nin and I leave 2 mana untapped or something in order to get a counterspell, and he just blows Nin up in response. Now he's got Birthing Pod and Primordial out, and I've got nothing. And I certainly lose that game. So instead I just draw 9 in response, and I get Force of Will. Sure enough, Mystical Tutor off the top. And he gets Tooth and Nail. Thankfully, I have Force of Will. And after a bunch of time, actually, I think for a long time about whether I want to keep Cryptic Command or Mystical Tutor. And I realize here that the plan is to Amnesia him, because that at least it gets rid of the Birthing Pod probably permanently, and also it deals with whatever the hell else is in his hand. Hopefully they're not a bunch of giant creatures that he can use Mimeoplasm on. So I'm going to get beaten in the face here a bit. So I tutor during my upkeep. Take a damage. And I Amnesia. And I get Zenith, Birthing Pod, Simulacrum, and Life or Death. And that was pretty damn fortunate, honestly, that I didn't have to deal with Zenith. And I also got very lucky that he didn't have a big creature in his hand. Because right now he does have a target for his Mimeoplasm, but it isn't particularly great. Unfortunately, I've got Reliquary in play, so I get to keep all 9 of my cards, including all of these wonderful lands. 7 land, Crucible, Earthquake. So I've got the Earthquake for the Primordial, but I really don't want to do that, because that makes Mimeoplasm much more happy. I'm going to go back to the Strip Mine plan a little bit here. Blow up some of this stuff. Just try to cripple this man a little bit. And try to win with a Nin activation. So even though it looks like I'm doing pretty well here, unfortunately my hand is all junk. I'm going to have to take quite a beat down here. There's just a few turns here where you can draw something really deadly, like that. But at least Sylvan takes a turn to activate. Chalice. So now we just go for broke. So I decided to activate Nin for 11 because I spent some time looking at my graveyard and I realized I've got all of the 2 mana counters as well as the 3 mana counters too, and things like Remand and Leak also. So even though it might have made sense to leave 4 mana up, I figure with 11 cards drawn and almost half my deck, I'm definitely bound to hit a 2 mana counter. And I draw a bunch of stuff. No 2 mana counter, unfortunately, other than Muddle, which doesn't really count, but I do get Pact. So I can stop one of the things that he gets. Unfortunately, he's got Sylvan out. But yeah, I'm definitely liking my chances a lot more now. Just going to take one more beat to the face here. So he casts Eternal Witness, and even though he can get this back with Mimeoplasm, at least he'll be tapped out. And I'm pretty concerned about Birthing Pod here. So I'm sure he would probably get Birthing Pod, so might as well just counter the creature before countering the thing he gets back with it. He only kept 1 card too, which is interesting. He's done. I charge. Got to pay for that. Might as well pay for that. Since I already know what my plan is here, my plan is to just cast Karn. I've got a lot of mana to play too, which is nice. I guess I should have played Tezzeret there too. Cast Tezzeret first, untap the Vault and the Lotus, since it's actually free. But I decided to just cast Karn instead. And he scoops to that, which is definitely a relief. I don't feel like this game was completely over yet. I don't really know what's on top of his deck, but given that he gets to draw 4 more cards, or I guess 3 more cards over the next step, he might be able to draw his way out of the situation, especially given that he's at 7. But instead he just packs it in. and I win a very cool contested game. Hope you enjoyed it.